Climate change, an almost inevitable part of the lives of future generations. A future posing universal challenges the likes of which we as a society have yet to face. Yet face it, we will. November 2021 saw Glasgow host leaders and climate activists from around the world at the 26th UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26. At the same time, the British Council engaged a group of young activists from the host city of Glasgow to take part in a social action project. Being from the Glasgow Bangladeshi diaspora, they knew all too well what was at risk. Rising sea levels and ever more destructive natural disasters are now commonplace in South Asia, and particularly in Bangladesh, displacing millions and destroying entire ecosystems. The true cost, no doubt, beyond measure, and only revealed over time. With climate change and environmentalism at the forefront of their minds, this group set off to explore their relationship with nature, over air, sea, and land.
Any good, healthy ecosystem needs to have kind of ecological integrity, and that means that things need to function and that there need to be all the different components that allow it to function. Ultimately, it's about having lots of different things doing lots of different jobs and making sure everything's covered.
The RSPB is on the front line of conservation efforts in the UK. To learn about the effects of urbanisation on biodiversity, our group spent a day with specialist conservationists, amongst other things, birdwatching.
When I hear the word nature, the first thing I think of is my garden in the summer, and how in such a small, tight area of land there's such a variety of life and such a thriving ecosystem.
It is really important that our children understand the value of this world and everything that we do to prevent the climate change.
Climate is in part defined by life, biodiversity, and life is partly defined by and controlled by climate. So the two things are totally inseparable. Many of the problems that we have in relation to climate and the state of nature have come about because we have come to see ourselves as somehow being separate from, apart from nature. If you have a climate crisis, you have a nature crisis. If you have a nature crisis, you have a climate crisis. So it's really important that we tackle both together, or we'll end up tackling neither. The effects of climate change, it's been increasingly evident that that is now with us. It's not something that is for the future, it is something for now.
As the group delves further into the world of environmentalism, the impact of unchecked industry and empire become very apparent.
I think it's really hard to look at the history of Britain and particularly Scotland without looking at agriculture and land use and deforestation in particular.
Deforestation is a big thing that we're doing. It's not good. We're taking away homes from innocent animals and living things.
The major areas of deforestation currently are in Brazil in the Amazon and in Indonesia in the tropical rainforest there. The UK has been deforested over centuries. Much of the world has been deforested by the UK in its colonial phase.
The urbanisation of historically green spaces has changed the wider ecosystem in unimaginable ways.
Questions raised of noise pollution, light pollution, whether we can still hear birds and see stars, the way that birds' behaviour is changing in response to urbanisation. Those are really stark reminders, I think, of just how much of an impact seemingly mundane things that we do can have.
The activity that far and away dominates in terms of changing the state of nature is farming, because 70% of the globe is farmed. On average, food accounts for about 30% of our carbon footprint.
With almost a third of our carbon footprint coming from agriculture, we come to the largest challenge of all, our reliance on fossil fuels.
So fossil fuels represent dead plants that have accumulated over millions of years, and ordinarily they would be returned to the atmosphere over millions of years. But we have dug them up and put that carbon, CO2, back into the atmosphere in a few short decades. The industries that contribute most to climate change are the ones that mainly burn fossil fuels. Gas and coal in power stations for electricity, in transport systems, in cars and lorries and so on. Concrete, steel and aluminium, and petrochemicals, paints, plastics and so on. And then fertilisers.
The influx of atmospheric CO2 from burning fossil fuels at an industrial level has been linked to rising temperatures worldwide.
We've got less of a buffer against the changes that we're seeing in our kind of atmosphere because there aren't such sufficient natural stores to kind of absorb the impacts of those.
Certainly over the last century, we've seen about a 1 degree C rise in temperature, and that's very rapid in any kind of geological sense of past events of climate change that we've seen. With rising temperatures, we'll have rising sea levels, we'll have more frequent, more intense storms, more frequent fires, more frequent floods, more prolonged and frequent drought periods.
The consequences of this unrelenting forced growth from the world's industrial economies can no longer be ignored.
The sea levels are rising and they're swallowing up countries such as Bangladesh and to be forgotten in like maybe 100 or 200 years.
One of the effects of rising CO2 levels in the atmosphere is ocean acidification, increasing CO2 levels in the oceans as well. Ocean acidification threatens marine ecosystems as a whole.
If there are acid rains, it damages the green part of our world. It goes into our food chain. Every fish that you are seeing, and people start seeing microplastic. 80% of the ocean pollutions are coming from the land-based activities. We are seeing all the effects of the plastics, pollutions, and number of areas around the world, and there is no more fish.
There's going to be some bad events in the future. There's going to be people having to be evacuated because of wildfires. There's going to be breathing problems because of the polluted air, the smog that's going to be like covering over cities. There's going to be habitat loss. We're not going to see the biodiversity as we can see in this park that we're in right now.
The main thing that needs to change is people's connection to it. People need to care. And I think it's very hard to teach people about things that they don't care about and don't see as important to their everyday lives.
More than 60 million people are earning their lives around the world from fishing. 90% of the goods that are transported by sea is providing as a affordable and also sustainable food and material sources that are supporting people's higher standards of living.
Being invested in the world around you and fighting to keep it alive is a core tenet of the Social Action Project. Over the last century, we've seen time and time again that the fight for change has been brought by the next generation. Climate activism is no different.
It's going to be our generation who's going to have to deal with that, right? It's not going to be the politicians who are 70 years old. It's not going to be them who's going to have to deal with it. It's going to be us.
Young people are being relied on to take action against climate change. It can affect a lot of us, and it affects me. It's like impending doom. Like, it's just like knowing that if we can't slow this down, if we can't stop this or take any action, the world could end, and that's really scary. That's terrifying to know.
At times, it may seem like we should give up, but right now, honestly, that's not an option. We only have one option right now, and that is to forge forward, make up new solutions, and come up with a way to save our world, because if we don't save it, then we're pretty much doomed.
COP26 had leaders from the world's greatest superpowers come together in Glasgow to further that very cause.
They're setting up the Paris Agreement as a goal so we can tackle the problem of climate change together.
The Paris Agreement is a legally binding treaty signed by 196 parties at COP21. This aimed to limit the worldwide temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. This would go a long way to limiting the worst effects of climate change.
Nature's very resilient and there will be something around. It's just whether it's what we need it to be. And we've already degraded our natural environment so much in so much of the world.
If we want change, we have to change now. We can do things ourselves, or we can get these politicians to do something for us. But if we want change, it has to be now.
I think getting people to have that awakening to realise how important it is to them and to the things that they value in their life. If we can get there, then I think there's a lot of headway that can be made from there.
Young people like all of us can ask questions of where does stuff come from? How is it being produced? And the more that these questions are asked, the more that retailers and producers will have to answer to them.
We can't solely rely on technology. There's, small things that we can do ourselves, change our habits that can, help mend and reverse the effects of climate change. Taking public transport, taking the train, or walking and cycling where it's possible, just to eat less meat, especially red meat.
I live in Scotland and it's one of the forerunners in harnessing the power of the wind. We went down to Strathclyde University and we went down to one of their laboratories to see all the various technologies and systems that go into creating these turbines and creating ways of harnessing this energy.
We're actually learning that you can get a lot of energy if you put wind turbines in the ocean.
In oceans, wind levels are significantly higher than the land base, provided that you have the good solutions, engineering solutions that will give you a constant energy source. For us, it is really important to understand the benefits. We need to appreciate the value of our world, what it gives us. We have young brains, ideas. Every single person has a role to play, and we need to encourage how they can contribute, and every good idea has a place on the table.